وسهلا بكم أصدقائي في الجزء الثالث عشر من الخيميائي. Just before we start, I saw that many of you are viewing the videos but not yet subscribed. So please go there and hit this button, subscribe button. Don't be shy. Without further ado, let's read together. We don't know when the war will end, so we can't continue our journey, he said. The battles may last for a long time, perhaps even years. There are powerful forces on both sides, and the war is important to both armies. It's not a battle of good against evil. It's a war between forces that are fighting for the balance of power. And when that type of battle begins, it lasts longer than others, because Allah is on both sides. The people went back to where they were living, and the boy went to meet with Fatima that afternoon. He told her about the morning's meeting. The day after we met, Fatima said, "You told me that you loved me. Then you taught me something of the universal language and the soul of the world. Because of that, I have become a part of you." The boy listened to the sound of her voice and thought it to be more beautiful than the sound of the wind in the date palms. "I have been waiting for you here at this oasis for a long time. I have forgotten about my past, about my traditions, and the way in which men of the desert expected women to behave. Ever since I was a child, I have dreamed that the desert would bring me a wonderful present. Now my present has arrived, and it's you." The boy wanted to take her hand, but Fatima's hands held to the handles of her jug. "You have told me about your dreams, about the All-King and your treasure, and you've told me about omens, so now I feel nothing, because it was those omens that brought you to me. And I'm a part of your dream, a part of your destiny, as you call it. That's why I want you to continue toward your goal. If you have to wait until the war is over, then wait. But if you have to go before then, go on in pursuit of your dream. The dunes are changed by the wind, but the desert never changes. That's the way it will be with our love for each other. Maktub," she said. "If I'm really a part of your dream, you'll come back one day." The boy was sad as he left her that day. He thought of all the married shepherds he had known. They had a difficult time convincing their wives that they had to go off into distant fields. Love required them to stay with the people they loved. He told Fatima that at their next meeting, the desert takes our men from us, and they don't always return," she said. "We know that, and we are used to it. Those who don't return become a part of the clouds, a part of the animals that hide in the ravines and of the water that comes from the earth. They become a part of everything. They become the soul of the world. Some do come back, and then the other women are happy because they believe that their men may one day return as well. I used to look at those women and envy them their happiness. Now I too will be one of the women who wait. I'm a desert woman, and I'm proud of that. I want my husband to wander as free as the wind that shapes the dunes, and if I have to, I will accept the fact that he has become a part of the clouds and the animals and the water of the desert. The boy went to look for the Englishman. He wanted to tell him about Fatima. He was surprised when he saw that the Englishman had built himself a furnace outside his tent. It was a strange furnace fueled by firewood, with a transparent flask heating on top. As the Englishman stared out at the desert, his eyes seemed brighter than they had when he was reading his books. "This is the first phase of the job," he said. "I have to separate out the surfer. To do that successfully, I must have no fear of failure. It was my fear of failure that first kept me from attempting the master work. Now I'm beginning what I could have started 10 years ago. But I'm happy at least that I didn't wait 20 years. He continued to feed the fire, and the boy stayed on until the desert turned pink in the setting sun. He felt the urge to go out into the desert to see if its silence held the answers to his questions. He wandered for a while, keeping the date palms of the oasis within sight. He listened to the wind and felt the stones beneath his feet. Here and there, he found a shell and realized that the desert in remote times had been a sea. He sat on a stone and allowed himself to become hypnotized by the horizon. He tried to deal with the concept of love as distinct from possession and couldn't separate them. But Fatima was a woman of the desert, and if anything could help him to understand, it was the desert. As he sat there thinking, he sensed movement above him. Looking up, he saw a pair of hawks flying high in the sky. He watched the hawks as they drifted on the wind. Although their flight appeared to have no patterns, it made a certain kind of sense to the boy. It was just that he couldn't grasp what it meant. He followed the movement of the birds, trying to read something into it. Maybe these desert birds could explain to him the meaning of love without ownership. He felt sleepy. In his heart, he wanted to remain awake, but he also wanted to sleep. I'm learning the language of the world, and everything in the world is beginning to make sense to me. Even the flight of the hawks, he said to himself. And in that mood, he He was grateful to be in love. When you are in love, things make even more sense, he thought. Suddenly, one of the hawks made a flashing dive through the sky, attacking the other. As it did so, a sudden, fleeting image came to the boy, an army with its swords at the ready, riding into the oasis. The vision vanished immediately, but it had shaken him. He had heard people speak of mirages and had already seen some himself. They were desires that, because of their intensity, materialized over the sands of the desert. But he certainly didn't desire that an army invade the oasis. He wanted to forget about the vision and return to his meditation. He tried again to concentrate on the pink shaders of the desert and its stones, but there was something there in his heart that wouldn't allow him to do so. Always heed the omens, the old king had said. The boy recalled what he had seen in the vision and sensed that it was actually going to occur. He rose and made his way back toward the palm trees. Once again, he perceived the many languages in the things about him. This time the desert was safe, and it was the oasis that had become dangerous. The camel driver was seated at the base of a palm tree, observing the sunset. He saw the boy appear from the other side of the dunes. "An army is coming," the boy said. "I had a vision." "The desert fills men's hearts with visions," the camel driver answered. But the boy told him about the hawks, and he had been watching their flight and had suddenly felt himself to have plunged to the soul of the world. The camel driver understood what the boy was saying. He knew that any given thing on the face of the earth could reveal the history of all things. One could open a book to any page or look at a person's hand. One could turn a card or watch the flight of the birds. Whatever the thing observed, one could find a connection with his experience of the moment. Actually, it wasn't that those things in themselves revealed anything at all. It was just that people looking at what was occurring around them could find a means of penetration to the soul of the world. The desert was full of men who earned their living based on the ease with which they could penetrate the soul of the world. They were known as seers, and they were held in fear by women and the elderly. Tribesmen were also wary of consulting them because it would be impossible to be effective in battles if one knew that he was fated to die. The tribesmen preferred the taste of battle and the thrill of not knowing what the outcome would be. The future was already written by Allah, and what He had written was always for the good of men. So the tribesmen lived only for the present, because the present was full of surprises and they had to be aware of many things. Where was the enemy's sword? Where was his horse? What kind of blow should one deliver next in order to remain alive? The camel driver was not a fighter, and he had consulted with seers. Many of them had been right about what they said, while some had been wrong. Then one day the oldest seer he had ever sought out, and the one most to be feared, had asked why the camel driver was so interested in the future. Well, so I can do things, he had responded, and so I can change those things I don't want to happen. But then they wouldn't be a part of your future, the seer has said. Well, maybe I just want to know the future so I can prepare myself for what's coming. If good things are coming, there will be a pleasant surprise, said the seer. If bad things are, and you know it in advance, you will suffer greatly before they even occur. I want to know about the future because I'm a man, the camel driver had said to the seer, and men always live their lives based on the future. The seer was a specialist in the casting of twigs. He threw them on the ground and made interpretations based on how they fell. That day he didn't make a cast. He wrapped the twigs in a piece of cloth and put them back in his bag. I make my living forecasting the future for people, he said. I know the science of the twigs and I know how to use them to penetrate to the place where all is written. There I can read the past, discover what has already been forgotten, and understand the omens that are here in the present. When people consult me, it's not that I'm reading the future, I'm guessing of the future. The future belongs to God, and it's only He who reveals it under extraordinary circumstances. How do I guess of the future? Based on the omens of the present. The secret is here in the present. If you pay attention to the present, you can improve upon it. And if you improve upon the present, what comes later will also be better. Forget about the future and live each day according to the teachings, confident that God loves His children. Each day in itself brings with it an eternity. The camel driver had asked what the circumstances were under which God would allow him to see the future. Only when He Himself reveals it, and God only rarely reveals the future. When He does so, it is for only one reason. It's a future that was written so as to be altered. God had shown the boy a part of the future. The camel driver thought, why was it that he wanted the boy to serve as his instrument? Go and speak to the tribal chieftains, said the camel driver. Tell them about the armies that are approaching. They'll laugh at me. They're men of the desert, and the men of the desert are used to dealing with omens. Well then, they probably already know. They're not concerned with that right now. They believe that if they have to know about something, Allah wants them to know. Someone will tell them about it. It had happened many times before, but this time the person is you. The boy thought of Fatima and he decided he would go to see the chiefs of the tribes.
والآن إلى الملخص. جمع قائد القافلة الجميع حوله وعلمهم أن أمد الحرب قد يطول ولا يعلموا متى سينطلقون مجددا. حدث سانتياغو فاطمة بأنه لا يود أن يفترق عنها، وبالتالي هو قرر أن يتخلى عن سعيه في البحث عن الكنز وأن يستقر حيث هي. ولكن تفاجأ حين أجابته بأنها امرأة صحراء، وأن نساء الصحراء معتادات على فراق أزواجهن وأحبتهن في سبيل السعي وراء رزقهم أو الدفاع عن أوطانهم، وأنها ستنتظره حتى يبلغ مبتغاه. جلس سانتياغو يفكر فيما قالته فاطمة، فهو وقبل الآن ما كان يفرق بين الحب والتملك. وهو غارق في تأملاته نظر إلى السماء فرأى صقرين يحلقان، وفجأة هاجم أحدهما الآخر. في تلك اللحظة رؤية عابرة تملكت سانتياغو، فهو رأى فيما يراه النائم أن الواحة قد هوجمت. فزع الغلام وذهب إلى قائد الجمال يخبره بما رأى. فهم قائد الجمال ما رواه سانتياغو، وأخذ يحكي له تجربته مع عراف قصده في الماضي لكي يعرف مستقبله. ورغم أن العراف كان يكسب عيشه من توقع المستقبل، فإنه قال لسائق الجمال أنه لا فائدة من معرفة المستقبل، فإن كان يحمل أمورا جيدة فهي ستكون مفاجأة سارة، وإن كان يحمل أمورا سيئة فإنك ستعاني مرتين، وأنه إن أنت ركزت اهتمامك على تحسين حاضرك فما يأتي بعد ذلك سيكون لا محالة جيدا. نصح سائق الجمال سانتياغو بأن يروي رؤياه إلى قائد القبيلة. فتردد سانتياغو، ولكنه فكر في فاطمة فعزم على ذلك. كان هذا أصدقائي ملخص الجزء 13. Until I see you next time, take care and bye bye.